Hey guys, it's Jimmy Bremner coming at you from CTOA or Copcast today. In the studio today, I have Rob Quartly with me, and he has a project called Grief Stories. So we're going to back up a bit with Rob and ask him a little bit about his background and then how that generated into the project he's working with now. And as you know, the title infers that grief, so there's some PTSD. Connection in this, some synergy there. So that's basically the conversation that we're going to have today. So Rob, without any further ado.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, pleasure to have you here.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you.
So can you bring me a little bit of your background?
Sure. I'm a filmmaker.
Okay.
Have always been a filmmaker.
Right.
My experience is of a range from documentary, way too many music videos in the 80s and the 90s.
And those where they have the spark machine factory?
Oh yeah.
Metal bands, that type of thing?
Lots of smoke, yeah. Commercials, television. Mainly my role has been as a director.
Okay.
I still love filmmaking. It's a passion of mine. It's a world to kind of get lost in, to explore, but probably for me more than anything else, it's been an arena to follow interests. So I play music. I was interested in music, and I had the filmmaking school, so I happened to be at the beginning of the start music video. So I was able to explore my interest in music through film.
So video killed the record.
Yeah, we had an expression. It was a nice song. Shame about the video, or the other way around. Nice video, shame about the song. So there was some killing involved in the radio there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Filmmaking has been a tool for me to explore.
Right.
I've been very respectful, I believe, of creating content that is really giving the audience something, whether or not it's a smile, a laugh, or learning something. And that's forever challenging.
Sure.
That's
and that slowly evolved into this new project.
So what happened? This project is it really started with a friend of mine, an editor, a friend of mine by the name of Sean. Lost his wife to breast cancer, and Susie was really Sean's soulmate. They were completely in love and connected, and it really hit him hard. And as I would check in with him as a friend or working on projects with him, he would tell me that he would wake up every night at 3 o'clock in the morning and would go online looking for some answers, even though he was doing individual therapy. He was at group therapy down at Gilda's Club in Toronto, which is excellent. Great support from family and friends, but was a mess. And what he found online was lots and lots of text. There was very little video. And the last thing he felt like, everyone's different, but I think a lot of people reading when you're in grief is sometimes.
Well, we send and receive. Everybody, again, learns differently. We send and receive on different frequencies. So sometimes reading, some people enjoy that. Some people would rather watch a video or something like that. So there's all different ways of learning. But certainly, having been through my ordeal, reading is difficult because you're constantly distracted.
That's right.
From word to word, and then you're off, and you can't get past the first page in a lot of cases.
Yeah, first paragraph he told me. And he would find himself rereading and trying.
And then you get frustrated because I can't read now.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
Exactly. So it sort of multiplies on itself. So there he is, 3 o'clock in the morning, frustrated, looking for something. And I said to him, hey, we're filmmakers. Why don't we make a couple of films for someone like you alone?
Right.
And at 3 o'clock in the morning, where can you get help at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Right.
So 3 films became 8 films, and we just started making more and more films. I think we now have over 700 films on our website.
So what's the spectrum of all? That's a lot of films. So
it is. Yeah, and this has been a really big learning journey for me
Sure.
about the spectrum.
Right.
So, for instance, initially we had some professionals on camera, and we had some lived experience people who had lost either a loved one, a parent, or a partner. And then we started to make some films about suicide. And then we started to make some films about, we have some death during service. And so what's happened is that it's become, I think, about 20 or 25 categories, or from a spectrum point of view, of types of films. And they're all short.
Which is good.
Yeah. It's usually almost as if it's one question being answered. And in the same way that I think I'm looking into your main camera here, as soon as you're looking into the camera, every one of our videos has someone looking into the camera as if having a conversation, so that there's a connection with the person.
I think that's actually a good strategy, because we want to connect as a human.
That's right.
And certainly a book doesn't do that. Certainly, if you're looking away or you're not getting that eye contact that indicates that we're both human. And now we can start a relationship and build a rapport and trust and all of it, that type of thing.
That's exactly what it is. Eye contact, I think you read.
We do. Definitely we do. We
100%
we do.
Yeah. So they're short. They have eye contact, and the videos really probably split between professionals, maybe 25% of the content, and maybe 75% is people with lived experience. The audience that we're speaking to is really anybody who is in grief.
And that's most people go through that at some point in their lives.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
For the most part, it's people who are, it's not fresh grief, but people who have already had some experience with
some
grief.
baggage that we all carry.
Yeah, well, exactly. So there's people who are talking about something that happened 20 years ago.
So you're trying to help them lighten the load.
Lighten the load.
Yeah.
But not only that, we're trying to help people who want to support someone who's in grief.
And that's interesting, because a lot of times people don't know how to help. They don't know what to say is the hardest things for people. I usually respond, well, just give them a hug.
Yeah.
And that'll probably get the conversation going off of that. But certainly we've all been to funerals and people just don't know what to say. So I think any assistance you can give them to open up that first sentence.
Exactly.
I think that's really important.
There was one expression that I heard in the course of filming, which I hold on from that, and that is the 80-20 rule, is 80% listening. You're
in my head, so really what people are looking for is somebody to listen. And there's an interesting, anecdotally, people go to a natural path for their needs, but their experience there is the 45 minutes that the natural path spends getting to know you, and it's a personal human connection that they're making.
Right.
Where we go to a medical doctor,
right,
and they see you for maybe 5 minutes tops, prescription, and out the door. So really what people are looking for is a human connection and listening. I say to people all the time, all you have to do is be a good listener and just non-judgmental and let them speak.
And as awkward as it may feel, just being there and paying attention is a big support, as a reaffirmation. There's just so many parts of that. So people who are supporting, people who are in grief, and then also healthcare professionals. So our content is used, for instance, in a death cafe, where there'll be some videos put on as conversation starters. People could use it as homework. Check this out. Maybe you'll find some tools or tips.
Well, I will say that's depending on what you're selecting on YouTube, but there are a lot of medical professionals that are on YouTube now that they have some great insight to a lot of things like addiction and dependencies, and so where you might not have the courage to walk into healthcare facility, you can click a button on YouTube and you can watch it and get some inspiration from those videos.
Isn't it the whole internet, the connectedness,
Right.
in a positive sense, is the ability to access content like that in your own time, whenever. Actually, our project used to be called 3 a.m. And we started calling it 3 a.m. because that seemed like
That's good. Yeah, well, yeah, I wake up almost every day, 2 a.m. for a couple of minutes. And then try to figure out, hopefully I haven't got a lot going on my mind and I can get back to sleep. But sometimes, I'm up until the morning.
Ruminating or whatever.
Well, I think that's, humans are natural problem solvers. And when something doesn't go our way, we try to go back and woulda, shoulda, coulda, try and fix it. But reality, you have to accept it and move forward.
So the internet gives the people who may not like going to therapy, may not like going to group therapy, it gives them access. And we thought that there's a huge hole out there for content that can support people who are in grief, or as I was saying, people who want to support grievers themselves. You touched upon addiction, opioid. We've been doing work in the world of drug poisoning. And oh my God, it's just, there's such a need out there for community to connect, to talk, to understand.
It's funny because addicts really need the human connection, but they isolate to, and take, whether it's alcohol or drugs, to self-medicate and avoid, human contact. So it's a puzzling, we've tried many ways of going about it, but addiction is a tough one.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one.
It's a very difficult one.
Well, just before we started recording here, you were talking about the number of suicides in service in North America. And you think about the people who have gone down the self-medicating route to try to find some way of dealing with their pain.
In some cases, I think it's like slow suicide. That people are, drinking or drugging in hopes that maybe this time I won't wake up. Right. And it's a terrible cycle to get into. But that said, again, when people are sick, and you're asking them to go to, the doctor and get a prescription and go to the pharmacy, and, and there's a lot of bureaucracy involved in that. Maybe your insurance isn't up to date. So why wouldn't they go to the street corner of the liquor store to get their medicine? Yeah. And so I think there has to be, streamline it, and a conduit for addicts that they go directly and you can't expect somebody who's sick to and there's not, practicing self-care and looking after themselves to show up to an appointment. I think it's ridiculous. So anybody that's involved in helping people in these situations, you have to take them by the hand and make sure that they're, being looked after. But even in that, it's showing that you care.
Right. And I think that's one of the underpinning emotions that we're using is the idea of caring, right? By sharing, I think that's an old expression, by sharing, you're caring.
Sure. Yeah.
So when someone tells their story, for instance, we have playlists of maybe 5 or 6 people just telling their story. I think people watching that are getting something out of it. But I also think the people that are sharing it are getting an affirmation, a validation, a cathartic process of telling. So all around, in the same way that we're talking about addiction, all around, people helping people as a community and connecting. And you used the word human several times. I think that's brilliant. That's exactly what it is, being human with each other.
Yeah, well, I've been all over the world. Policing's the same all over the world. It's a human condition that you're dealing with. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. That's pretty clear to me. When you see the same issues. You see addiction all over the world. You see, homelessness all over the world. It's not particular to North America.
Right. Yeah. So we I think I've sort of covered a bit of what we're the base of what we're doing. By the way, we also do podcasts.
Oh, great. Well, maybe we can exchange.
I would love to.
Well, I'll
have
take you up on that.
Okay, and we do blogs. So we're trying to create a variety of content, and we're a charity.
Oh, great.
So the idea is to get it out there to people, and I'd encourage anyone that's listening to this to feel free to have a look around and share it with anyone that you may think could benefit.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It's solely set up to help,
right?
Support. Yeah. Yep. So the reason why we're here, and thank you for meeting with me, is that one of the initiatives that we're interested in getting more content about is first responders.
Sure.
The uniqueness of you know first responding
very well.
So the uniqueness of the world that you know, I think it would be great to have content that speaks to that world around loss, and tips and tools and connections and ways of supporting each other.
Are you currently, with the database that you have, are you connecting with law enforcement agencies and firefighters? Can you send that out to their particular unit and they can watch it?
Soon. It's just starting. So I've recorded one RCMP officer who's she's recently retired. I've got a fabulous interview with someone who lost her son during service.
Right.
But yeah, so as we were talking earlier, first responders, all first responders, interested in finding people who want to share, because not everyone wants to share.
No, it's not for everybody.
No, by video, by blog, by podcast, so that we can create a database that's more specifically aimed at first responders. Although I think we have quite a bit of content that would be valid regardless.
Well, first responders are a tough crowd to begin with. If I could say anything to anybody that's in the process of becoming a police officer, it would be your life has changed forever from this day forward. Because you talk about grief there, but there's different kinds of grief. So what'll happen in most cases when you become a police officer, all your high school friends, they disappear. And it's hard to keep those relationships because you're so focused on your career, and that the police become your support system, really. And which can be maladaptive, because the police attitude is negative in most cases, right? Can have low morale. But again, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will. So mine, I come in negative about something, and I'm supported by my police friends. It's, negative. And really, you have to get out of that police culture and see other people and see that actually, the world's a pretty good place. And so sometimes even your support group is working negatively in trying to get you better. So, but what I'm getting at is, again, you'll grieve that. And then you mentioned the RCMP officer that recently retired. I have to be honest with you, retiring was really hard for me. And it like for 6 months, it was really difficult for me, because I spent 37 years going 1,000 miles an hour. And when that all stopped, you felt like, what happened, Yeah. And so you grieve that. And I really believe that when police officers are going to retire, it's not just about the numbers and your pension and all that. There should be somebody that's recently retired that can sit down and have this conversation. Absolutely. And say, anticipate this, So again, we grieve. There's many things we grieve over. Of course, death is the one that is foremost in our mind.
Yes. But
they're all different life circumstances that can lead to that grieving process.
There's a name which I've recently come across, which is called shadow loss.
I've never heard that.
And,
Interesting.
and so it's defining, I think, the type of grief that
Yeah.
you're referring to. So yes, retiring, or I mean, it could be moving somewhere and losing all
Oh,
your
sure.
friends,
Yeah.
physical thing that happens to
Exactly.
you. But it's called a shadow loss.
Yeah,
which
that's
is
appropriate.
Sort of,
yeah.
which sort of explains it. So
Yeah. So what's coming up in the future, in the near future for you?
So in the near future, I have a number of different video interviews that we'll be doing, hoping to launch a page on the site that will be specifically for first responders. So not only police, but also in the EMS
Yep.
and nursing in the hospitals.
Well, I mean, everybody can be.
Line.
Yeah, I mean, everybody can be a first responder. If you see an accident on the side of the highway and you render assistance, you become a first responder.
Right.
So it's not something that is relegated to the people in the uniforms.
Right.
It can happen to anybody.
Right.
And as I said, humans are problem solvers, so we try to fix something that no fault of our own. It's just what happened.
Yeah.
But we will continually go back to try and fix it. So without help or something like you have with the videos and with that content, people can struggle for sure.
There's an expression I meant to bring up with you earlier. It's grief is universal, but it's also individual. So we all have our own way of going through grief.
Right. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, and then I'll tie it back into the first responder thing, and that would be, I've never been a police officer.
That's a good thing.
The closest I've
Probably
been,
a happier person.
I was at Queens. I think there was I think it was called AMS. We did some kind of crowd control stuff like that. No, I no experience in that. So for me to tell you about my grief, although there may be parts of it that you would relate to, I think if you were hearing from a first responder talking about their grief and you were watching it, I think there's more of a connection. So we're closer to relevant conversation, and I think that's a really key thing. What speaks to you individually? Even if there's been a traumatic death that 4 or 5 people have experienced, everyone goes through it differently as well as the same.
Agreed. And you shouldn't diminish your own personal feelings, because a lot of people will speak to me,
right,
and they'll say, well, it's not like what you went through. No, but it's what you went through, and it's equally as important. So you shouldn't diminish your feelings when you're talking to somebody that's had that experience. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But you're correct. Some people can drive through it, and some people it's going to take a little bit of time. Some people will need friends and psychologists to talk to. Some people go to a church. 100%. Everybody has a different way of.
And even the people that drive through it, they can find years later it catches up.
Well, I found there is no driving through it.
There you go.
You can put your head down and you can try and ignore it as long as you can, but eventually you have to settle with it, kind of become friends with it and move on.
What kind of support did you have?
Well, in the beginning, there was nothing, because we're going back, 20 long time. And at the beginning, there was no, people knew of PTSD, but there was really no help, type of thing. So what happens is the people steadily decline from the point where they contracted PTSD. My case took about 5 years, and then finally I just couldn't function anymore. So what came of that is we have a lot of awareness programs now. It's the provincial government has helped, and that it's assumed that if you've been involved in a significant incident, that you get the medical attention that you need. It's presumptive. So there's conferences about it all over. There's great content on YouTube, and so it's come a long way. But you can even, so if you look at World War II and vets return, they had parades.
Right.
Love you guys, gals. Vietnam, totally different experience. Right. So because they weren't welcomed back into that social group, and they're being spit on and called baby killers, and So, it's pretty clear why they would internalize a lot of things and then turn to, a substance to try and help them out with that.
Sure.
So it's really accepting people unconditionally, not judgmental
Yeah.
for whatever, they're going through or who they are.
Yeah.
That's really what helped me.
Right.
I was really fortunate to have a lot of friends that were very supportive, and my wife of over 40 years is just amazing.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you to go on film.
Oh, yeah, it's my pleasure. I'm happy to do it because I really believe that somebody should be forewarning people of what to expect, especially young officers, because they really don't know what to expect. Because your life truly changes forever. You're going to see things that nobody should see. And I was saying to Grant, our producer here, I can't even watch like horror movies or cop movies when I can watch it until we get to the violent part,
Right.
and I'm not really interested anymore. Right. So it does change people.
Triggers. There's things like that you're just.
Well, yeah. Again, there are triggers. So it could be a word, it could be an odor, it could be a sound, it could be music playing.
Sure.
That brings you right back to that incident, and so it's learning to deal with that and slow that down and understand that's how I feel, but it's not the reality.
Right.
Right. And that's why I always get a kick out of, it's 10 degrees today, but it feels like -2. Well, it's just one or the other, right? Because it might feel different to me, but the temperature is the temperature.
So coming as a filmmaker to making this kind of content for this charity, I think that my dream is that people share just the same way you're talking, so that someone else can go, oh, okay, I identify.
Yeah, and that's what was behind my book, 100%. That it just, like I said, there should be mentors out there.
That's right.
That are going and helping young people.
Yeah.
And I think the world lacks a lot of mentors currently.
And now we have this tool, the internet.
Yeah, it's fabulous. I mean, who doesn't get down the YouTube rabbit hole?
Oh.
You go in to look at a medical thing, then you're looking at tires and, something about horses.
Yeah.
So you can, get stuck on that for a long time.
Even at 3 a.m.
Even if that's the worst time to look at it. Yeah. Well, anything coming up, like any dates we should be aware of? Or?
We're hoping to launch in September with this.
Okay.
So that's the big date as far as this is concerned. We're constantly releasing new content. If you go to our site,
And that is the site?
griefstories.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's it for CTOA for a Copcast this time. Thanks very much, Rob, for coming in. I think this is a really good tool for anybody that might be struggling in any capacity. And what it does is it normalizes your situation because you see other people going through it. So with that said, that's Copcast for today. We will be at the Blue Line trade show for one day, and we'll be doing Copcast live from there. And we'll be doing some gear review and that type of thing. So thanks to RBG Security, thanks to Hudson Supply and Lampert Less Lethal and all of the other sponsors. And that's it. I'm out.